I think we can go ahead and get started now. So welcome, everybody. We're sure happy to have you with us today. Hope you enjoy this. I'll start with some introductions. My name is Pat Hafford. I am the president of IACBE, and I am extremely pleased to have joining us today Maja Zelehic. You know, I'm going to know you for years, and I am never going to get it right on the first pass. But Dr. Zelehic is going to speaking to us today at this webinar, but she is also going to be our keynote speaker at the annual conference in April in Orlando, Florida. So we would love to see any and all of you at the conference as well. Let me tell you a little bit about her background and credentials, of which there are many. She is a college dean, a Fulbright specialist, and a full professor at the Forbes School of Business and Technology at the University of Arizona Global Campus. She's the chair of the FSBT's Board of Advisors. She has a PhD in organizational management, an MBA, and an MA in organizational leadership and development. Her keynote that I mentioned, which will be given at ACAM in Florida, is entitled Innovations and Experiential Learning in the Age of Industry 5.0. Now, we have a fair number of people on the call today, so I'm going to ask you to hold your questions for the end. You are more than welcome to enter them into the chat area. We'll be monitoring that, and Dr. Zelehic will come back to that after she's finished delivering the talk. So I think that's everything other than to thank you all for coming. And also, Maja, thank you for coming and talking to us today. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Pat, and thank you to IACBE for the gracious invite to be a keynote in Orlando and also to be a host of today's webinar. So thank you, Pat, to you and your team. And there is a reason why my students call me Dr. Z, because they're not able to pronounce my last name either. So you can call me Maja or Dr. Z if you want to use a more formal language anytime. The purpose of today's webinar is to entice your interest and get your thinking pertaining to the topic of my keynote. This is, of course, not my keynote. I will be introducing some core concepts, and I would like to hear from you. I would like to have an open discussion at the end of this presentation, and also to get us thinking pertaining to these concepts, and as educators, to try to address certain opportunities and certain challenges that we're facing with the emerging of new technologies in the classroom, in the world. So I would like to share a few slides with you. And the way Pat explained this to us, I'm going to cover a few concepts, and then we're going to have an open discussion and address some of your questions. And also I would love to hear from you as well. As I'm sharing the presentation, I will not be able to see the chat pod clearly. So yet again, you can use the chat pod. Pat's team will be moving your questions to the question and answer area. And then we're going to have an open dialogue. So what is the key purpose of us being here today? We are trying to discuss and analyze some of the educational innovations in the age of Industry 5.0. I think it goes without saying that we live in the world of rapid change, and our world is transforming as we speak, the way we live, work, and learn. Just several years ago, me being here as part of this webinar today and engaging with you would be absolutely impossible. So we're consistently experiencing the change. And as educators, we're trying to adjust ourselves to the concept of change and make sure that our students are learning and becoming a productive members of our society. So it is exciting time, but it's also time that actually scares us a little bit. And so we're trying to understand everything that is taking place in the world in general, but world of education in particular. So what is the current state of the industry transition? If you've done a random search pertaining to Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0, or if you went on a ChatGPT that we'll be discussing a little bit further down the line, the first thing that will struck you as incredibly confusing is that definitions are incredibly similar. So knowing as to what to ask and knowing to question the difference between those two concepts is the first thing that I would like us to focus on. Some companies are still pursuing the Industry 4.0 movements and technologies as the next new thing. And critics are always saying that technology is literally pushed on people without consideration in so many different sectors. And I think as educators, we can agree with that statement, because sometimes as educators, we were experiencing technology being pushed on us without us necessarily being always well prepared. So in some way, the Industry 2.0, as we all know from history classes, represented the shift from the water and steam power to electrical. And the term Industry 4.0 was originally described as a transition in the German manufacturing towards digitization and automation. So those are some of the core things and core definitions here. And this is where I wanted us to kind of focus on some differences. And by the way, I'm not going to read every single definition. Everyone can benefit from looking at the slide. But I added the word education because every single time when you talk about the concepts within manufacturing, you can replace the words with education because the concepts are actually absolutely applicable. Industry 4.0 is the fourth industrial revolution. It's characterized by the integration of digital technologies, and it involves the use of all the technology that you see as part of this slide. Now, the 5.0 is still a conceptual framework. That's why if you start digging through it, reading on it, start listening to certain podcasts or watching certain videos, you may walk away saying to yourself, I'm now even more confused than I was prior to getting myself educated on this, because it is still framework that is being developed. It is seen as a human-centered approach to, again, manufacturing/education, and it's seeking to integrate the creativity and problem-solving skills of humans with the speed and efficiency of machines. Okay, so let's pause for a second. Creativity and problem-solving skills of humans with the speed and efficiency of machines. A lot of folks are accusing Industry 5.0 concepts of being incredibly vague and not necessarily realistic per se, without us actually digging deeper into what certain things entail within the umbrella of this conceptual framework, this conceptual movement. So, in summary, Industry 4.0 is focused on the integration of digital technologies, more efficient, more intelligent system. Industry 5.0 seeks to integrate the creativity and problem solving. So if that's one of the things that you're walking away from, not that we're learning definitions by heart, because yet again, definitions keep changing, and because we're actually the ones as educators reframing and changing what this means when it comes to the on the ground level, when it comes to the world of education. So this is one of the definitions. I'm not going to read it, but you can find many others. But instead of focusing on the definition itself, which is ever changing, I want to focus on its aim. So what is the aim of Industry 5.0? So we're trying to create a highly automated, efficient, and flexible production system that is responding to changing market demands and customers. Our customers are our students. That's our core stakeholder. So we're trying to refocus ourselves from the concepts of mass production that was so present within other industry movements to the concept of becoming more focusing on the concept of individual needs. So the custom-made approaches, for the lack of better words. I like this visual just because of us fully understanding some of the differences. Again, hyper customization is what we're trying to do. As educators, we have to question ourselves. I mean, is hyper customization possible? because what we're trying to do, we're still, trying to increase, I'm a dean within my university, and we're constantly working on retention initiatives, persistence initiatives, and also increasing enrollment. So as we're increasing enrollment, as we're working on gaining more students, are we truly able to customize our educational model to the needs of those students? So then, remote workforce versus on-site workforce, that is at the end here. I paused when I saw this, because I said to myself, there's so many industries right now, they actually are not abandoning the concept of the remote workforce. The same thing happens when it comes to the remote student population. I do see certain models that are leaning more towards a hybrid model, but I am not necessarily certain that this is such a cut and dry approach that you go from one to another. I don't think that's realistic. However, yet again, conceptual framework, we're still working on it. As a conceptual framework, this is one of the things that Industry 5.0 is striving for. The European Union came up with a few different definitions, and you can actually seeing it here. One of the things that I found interesting is placing the well-being of the worker at the center of production process. Now, I'm not being skeptical pertaining to this, but throughout history, different industry movements, they were always preaching the well-being of the worker, or back to our industry, educational industry, well-being of the student. But a lot of times, as you're introducing more and more technology, and if you're going and steering away from the concept of mass production to providing customized learning models, in theory, you are enhancing your abilities to provide well-being for your students. But it is, yet again, that's something that we're aspiring to do. The question will remain if that is something that we're able to achieve with all the technologies and all the changes that are happening currently in our world. Some of the features, you're talking about the artificial intelligence and machine learning. Artificial intelligence and virtual reality started as part of the 4.0 movement. So that is definitely something that that we're still seeing. It's continuously something seen, the robotics and automation. Traveling to India in 2018, I was doing a series of lectures at the Ivy League private schools across India. And at that point of time, I was absolutely blown away seeing what they're doing within the classrooms with the concepts of robotics and automation. I was literally absolutely impressed with how advanced some of those lessons were, and how advanced they were in introducing some of those type of concepts to the student population, even at a middle school level, not just higher education. That's the one that I'm working within. So interdisciplinary collaboration is a must, and this is where we're seeing is where the technology and the world of business and the world of education, they're continuously overlapping, and education must emphasize teamwork and collaboration between other fields. Well, you're probably saying, well, isn't that what we're doing right now? Yes, it is to a certain extent, but we have to do this even more so. I remember when within our university, we started introducing the concept of industry advisory boards, and we started aligning industry advisory boards to different programs. And we started observing the programs that did not have that alignment versus the ones that had that alignment. And the performance of the programs with the industry advisory boards alignment, even though those were requiring some work on behalf of us educators, they were outperforming their counterparts that were actually doing industry research, but not necessarily having the advisory board. So even something along those lines, a basic core concept can make a tremendous difference. So talking about a human-centric, resilient, and sustainable model. Intuitive bridges between industry and machines. Okay, in the current format, as I'm saying those words, if any of you are saying, oh, those are just a feel-good words and they don't mean much, well, that is what the critics are saying. Yes, that is exactly some of the response to the movements within the industry. Some critics are saying the way it's currently defined, Industry 5.0 makes no sense and brings no value. It's a marketing gimmick for people and organizations that should know better. So you know what, as we start our discussion, I'm eager to hear your thoughts pertaining to that, because I felt the same way even prior to seeing that it's labeled as a feel good. I felt that way as I was reading some of its features or some of its intended features. So as you talk about yourself, what you're doing within your worlds of education, and you talk about the business education in particular, some of those features are sustainable. Some of those features are we can achieve some of those desired qualities, but in some cases it will be hard. So we're talking about Industry 5.0 versus 4.0 in education. You know, we introduced so many advanced technologies in the world of education as part of 4.0. I spent quite a bit of my time working on the e-learning implementation efforts across the world. Southern African region in particular, Caribbean, some parts of Middle East. And introducing the new technology, everyone may say, oh, we're so past that stage. Yes, we are. But just a few short years ago, we were exactly there, where we were actually, I remember when we were actually doing a very comprehensive training with the Zambian educators. I was at the University of Zambia. I spent a month there, literally creating an online environment for their educators to transfer some of their classes online, enabling a lot of different Zambian students to attend University of Zambia from the comforts of their home. Prior to that, University of Zambia was a very exclusive education model where one would have to live in the capital. So introducing the new technology and seeing what these same educators are now doing with the new technology as they're engaging with their students is absolutely, absolutely amazing. So we will be focusing, at least as it's intended, on developing human-centered and empathy skills, focusing on ethical decision-making, emotional intelligence when it comes to the movements within 5.0. And there is a growing need with all these industry movements for the concept of a lifelong learner. So introduction of new technologies should, in theory, inspire students and educators alike to continuously learn and do more in their classes and do more when it comes to ensuring their students are reaching and achieving the desired objectives. This is just a quick example. You can all read some of the educational innovations. In case you're raising your hand saying, well, I've seen this in the prior stages of the industry development. Yes, you have. Industry 5.0, again, is not about introduction of all the new technological movements. Industry 5.0 is making it more human-centric and providing students with the desired tools to develop their critical and problem-solving skills. Going back to the course principle of using technology to enhance the educational process and not serving its own needs. Which is, as you were developing courses, I'm sure at your universities, it's easier said than done. I have a few examples that I can think of. We were introducing the capstone simulation in one of our MBA courses, and we were very proud of ourselves, and we were trying to replicate a true business problems and a true business setting and business environment. And students were really not performing well as part of that simulation, and we were very confused as to why. The scenarios were actually not necessarily truly realistic scenarios that one would encounter at a workplace. Our students are adult students. Many of them have, at least prior to entering our courses, at least two jobs or more. And they were not able to relate to some of the concepts that simulation was presenting us with, simply because of the fact that when the technology was created, whoever was actually coming up with the scenarios might have not been really in touch with the business arena. Similar situation happened with our business law class. And the gaming was incredible, but the virtual game was focusing more, without us realizing that, on serving its own needs. The focus was more on the engagement and the visual pertaining to the way the graphics, the way the images, the words that were being used, and they were playing a little bit with different accents. However, that was not necessarily enhancing the learning process, and consequently, we actually had to reshape that game quite a bit. So we're not advocating here abandonment of certain technologies, but really looking at it critically from a standpoint of what is this particular technology trying to achieve within a classroom. So that is one of the core questions. So before COVID, we talked about new education in the context of 4.0. I was just talking to Pat's team prior to everyone joining the webinar, how just doing these webinars prior to COVID, several years prior to COVID, I cannot even imagine doing different conferences, reaching out to the educators all across the world and business professionals all across the world. I have people in my network, and I'm sure all of you can relate to that I've never met, that are now, we're becoming close friends. And all we've done is we met virtually, or we were able to engage utilizing the technology that was available. And the COVID years actually transformed the way we approach the concept of learning and the way we approach the concept of doing business. So, the concern is, and was, that we were, we were not really focusing on the human element within the educational process. So can we be innovative while respecting who our core audience, our core customer is, our students? So that is what we're trying to do as we're working and playing with some of the new technologies. So education 5.0 starts with humans. Again, question yourself every single time, are these specific learning outcomes, are they being achieved as a use of this technology? We are developing courses, and we actually have a process within our university where we're developing courses on a continuous basis every single year. And sometimes we get carried away. The more the merrier. Let me introduce this because we're working with the learning course developers, the instructional designers that can do so much more than we were able to do in the past. But we do have to slow down a little bit, pause, and really reflect on, is this helping the learning process? So it's not just about developing digital tools and platforms, it's about providing critical thinkers, socially and emotionally intelligent individuals. It's providing tools for creation of those type of thinkers. And I want to reflect on a few things that we're dealing with right now. So if you haven't heard about ChatGPT, I'd be actually hard pressed to even think that anyone out there hasn't heard about it as of yet. The real question is, are you using it actively? Raise your hand if you are, and I am using ChatGPT. What's happening to us educators as a result of ChatGPT being introduced? With the Forbes Board of Advisors, we have some of the top level global thought leaders in different industries. And one of them, a lot of times we open an email chain and we start talking. And one of the topics that actually inspired the biggest conversation with ChatGPT, what are educators doing? What are universities doing? Sadly, for some are completely banning it. And how can you ban new technology? It's equivalent of banning computers when they came out, cell phones when they came out. So we have to question what are learning implications. I had a colleague telling me, well, all of a sudden, all my students are writing as if they are Shakespeare. Yeah, that may be problematic. I doubt that to be the case, because if you use ChatGPT, some of the language that is being used is pretty simplistic. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's at the level that the world renowned authors are at. However, it's getting better, right? So we already heard that the ChatGPT is passing medical exams and law exams. It's not passing at the A level. It's actually a C student, but a C student can get his or her diploma, right? We also heard of a judge, at least one judge, I'm sure there are more, that utilized and wrote his opinion utilizing some of the ChatGPT, and also gave ChatGPT credit for it. This morning, I'm on Twitter, and I am hearing that you have a lot of spin-offs. There are so many spin-offs of ChatGPT. You can actually have a ChatGPT doing your citations. So those of us doing academic research articles, music to our ears. However, there's also software out there that is providing citations that look incredibly real, but they are not. So those authors are actually not either the authors are completely made up or the citations are completely made up. So you have folks that are already making money with a ChatGPT detection softwares. Be very careful when you start subscribing to those or using those, because this is still an emerging technology. And if you test it yourself, sometimes some softwares are very good in detecting ChatGPT papers, some are not. You may end up accusing your students of using it when they're not, or you may actually completely miss a student that is using it. So what are we advocating here? Again, put a human at the center, as going back to the core definition of Industry 5.0 is. What can we use a new technology for? Teaching students how to properly ask questions, teaching students how to use this emerging technology as a starting point for their research, as opposed to research in itself. And also, you know, there are a lot of questions that we have not answered, such as, is it a cybersecurity threat? Is it threatening the world of education as we know it? Banning access is, I would say, ridiculous. I know it's a strong word, but you cannot regulate this. And all you're doing, if you're banning access, you're actually and subscribing to some of the softwares that are also questionable. You're actually not addressing the problem. You're creating a problem in itself. So, you know, we have to navigate new technology, and what we're trying to do is we have to understand how to navigate a world where artificial intelligence is increasingly a part of the everyday life. I mean, we have classes where we're using some concept of gaming, as I mentioned, some concept of virtual reality. Again, you don't want to frustrate your students either, because what ends up happening is if the student is spending hours upon hours understanding how to use something within a class, that is the time away from their learning process. That is the time away from critical thinking and really ensuring they're covering the ground and understanding what they need to do with the class material, unless the purpose of the class is how to use this particular technology. With that said, I would like to actually pause right here and reflect on some of the comments, some of the questions, and open this up for a discussion. I'm actually going to a chat pod that was not that, I don't see the activity in a chat pod. Do we have any questions? I'm trying to see if we have a question and answers forum. Do you have any, if we don't have any questions, do you have any questions, or who would like to speak? Actually, you can, it's a fairly small a group, so you can raise your hand and just use your mic and ask a question, or actually not even a question. You can comment on some of those things that we covered.
I didn't see anything come in the chat, Maja, so I didn't miss anything there, hopefully. And Andrea, I'm not sure if you can see anything I didn't see, but I didn't see anything pop in that area.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so who wants to be, everyone is now shy. That's usually, that usually happens with students. You're not students right now, or at least not all of your students. So who wants to say a few things? What are you experiencing in your schools, your classes? Who wants to share? Okay, Ricky's saying you covered everything. So there's nothing left to cover. Any experiences with any of the new emerging technologies in your classrooms?
I'm not a professor, Maja, but I guess I just have one kind of, you know, if you were to give people advice, right? Like generally when change comes along, you kind of adapt or die, right? You have to embrace it. But is there any sort of besides just focusing on, like the students and keeping it centered in that sense, like, is there anything else you think we should be aware of as we move forward with this that just, that maybe people haven't thought of an impact that you've seen or heard of?
Well, I think opening a dialogue, because when we started, I'm just going to use ChatGPT as an example. When we started talking about it, I'll be the first one to tell you, I get, as everyone, I'm sure, incredibly busy. So it's not as if I was on top of the news, right? So all of a sudden I started hearing all these, buzzwords pertaining to that. So the very first thing that I've done is I've started using it. Because how can you understand something if you don't start using it? I always go back to the concepts of my great aunt. In order to communicate with me and see pictures of my children, she started using Facebook. And she was 93 years old using Facebook. Prior to using Facebook, I don't even think she used a computer. So she actually skipped a few levels because she had that goal. So what is your goal with any new technology? You have to define that, and you have to understand it. And when people say, "Oh, don't be afraid of it," well, I'm not gonna say that, because of course we fear. I talked about a colleague saying everyone sounds like Shakespeare in my classes right now. That's a little exaggeration, because it's like I said, if you start using ChatGPT, you're not going to get that sort of a quality. You can't say, speak to me as Tolstoy, and then you can actually do you can get a glimpse of what that does. But at the same point of time, if the students are not able to ask proper questions, they're not going to be able to utilize the new technology. So understanding it, explaining it, their university, they're sending information booklets to their instructors. But when you start reading through that information, it's not really educating educators what it is and how to use it. It's educating educators how to prevent it. And that is the wrong mindset. We shouldn't be taught how to prevent something. We should learn, well, first and foremost, how to use it, because I'm saying that artificial intelligence, all these things that are emerging, they're here to stay, and they're going to get more and more and more advanced. So the concept of us, we should be on the forefront of understanding it, being able to use it, and educating our students how to properly use it, versus understanding how not to, or how to ban it, or how to prevent it. The thing is, it's a good question. How can students' learning be measured as you transition to Industry 5.0? That's a very valid question, because it goes back to that core concept of, is this a movement that makes us feel good? Because you are still in the era of mass production when it comes to education. Like I said, I volunteered openly that every single university, if one of your key goals is not retention, or if one of your goals that you're striving for is not increased enrollment, industries, universities are ran as businesses are. So how can you evaluate if a particular course was human-centric? How can you evaluate if a lesson was delivered with the concepts of empathy in mind? How can you evaluate whether students are really emerging as critical thinkers and problem solvers? Those are the core questions in order for you to determine if you are achieving that core purpose of Industry 5.0, which is, yet again, the framework is changing. There are ways to do it. A lot of times our answer to everything is let's test students. There are certain things that you're not able to test. The survey, the end of the course survey, a lot of times is just focused on grades and the experience with the instructor. It's not really evaluating some of those concepts. But we were just, I talked about the virtual reality, and we were talking about, we met with this a company that is actually, what they're trying to do, they're trying to sell us on some of the gear for the virtual reality courses. And as I was discussing this with educators within my university, it's what are we trying to achieve? Yet again, is the core purpose of this class for the students to learn how to use a particular technology? That may be the core purpose of that class. That may be the reason why they're in that class. But the vast majority of the cases, technology is supposed to assist the learning process. Technology should not serve its own purpose. So those are really valid questions. Any other comments? Any other questions?
So 2 days ago, ChatGPT, GPT-0, they just announced they are working with the schools. This is just 2 days ago. they would implement the GPT-0 in their LMSs. It's like you implement the anti-plagiarism tool in your LMS to detect any plagiarism. So from now and move on, any students who are using a ChatGPT will be detected by the GPT-0. I think the founder, his name is Edward from Princeton.
I read a few things pertaining to that.
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with the gentleman and have the respect for any work that anyone's doing in the area. Anyone that is claiming that they will come up with a perfect detection tool at this point of time, right this second, is overpromising. And I'm not sure if they're going to deliver on that promise. And again, the point of implementing it into an LMS, it's equivalent of a Turnitin in a sense, because all it does is it's even when you're looking at Turnitin that all of us are so familiar with, you
Right.
cannot look at the score and say there is a student that can have 35% of similarity. You go back to that work and you realize, they might have used a few more direct quotes or something like that, but fundamentally they're not plagiarized. And then you go in and you have a student at the 10%, and that student really copied a big chunk of another person's work without giving credit for it. So all of those detection tools will still have to have a human element, humans interpreting the findings. Because what we're going to end up doing is first of all, we're going to intimidate a student population. We're going to start accusing them of something that they haven't done. And keep in mind, there was a testing that was done just a few days ago with some of those detection softwares, and a couple of journalists were actually writing articles intentionally, and some were their original work, and some were ChatGPT, and it had like a 50% error rate. That's not a comfortable error rate for one to actually start implementing some of those detection software in classrooms. So basically 50% of students I'm going to accuse of plagiarizing that they have not committed. I mean, that's huge.
I think what they are doing, they are building like a huge database of what's the ChatGPT outcomes look like the length of the paragraph, how many words, the style of writing, the most resources that ChatGPT use. I think what they are doing, they are building that database of understanding of how ChatGPT they are working, and they are building the reverse side of the ChatGPT. This is what they are saying on their website. And I know the founder, he created another website. It's called Substack, and he's mentioning every step they take on the GPT-0 and the ChatGPT LMS integration. So it sounds like they are still working on it, but it's still in beta, so nothing gets really final. But I think it's another great way to detect the ChatGPT. Work that done by the students, though.
Yeah, the every time when there is a business opportunity, companies and people will pursue those opportunities. There'll be tons of opportunities that come out. Every time you have an emerging technology, you have tons of additional business opportunities correlated to that emerging technology. So you will have not just one, you're going to have multiple companies exploring this beautiful opportunity. I would like for us to shift our mindset. Our mindset should be towards how to teach students to properly use it, leverage the new technology, in order not to plagiarize as well, absolutely, but not steering away into the area of gotcha. Because if you're in that area, at that point of time, students are still going to use it. Because even with Turnitin, have we stopped the concept of plagiarism through Turnitin? No, we haven't. I was actually, in 2018, I was at a conference in Iceland, and I was doing a research pertaining to practices associated across the world of catching students, for lack of better words, whether they're plagiarizing versus not, and how different cultural practices play an important part. There are certain countries that don't have necessarily as strong copyrights regulations as we do. There are certain instances where what we consider plagiarizing, there are countries where students are considering that part of the public domain, and as such, it's a fair game. And yet again, from 2018 until now, when I was doing that research, we were able to somewhat control certain things, but instances of students cheating in classroom has not stopped. I think the same thing will happen with this. So we have to shift our focus on education, utilization of new technologies, because actually ChatGPT can be quite helpful for us educators. You are developing a course, and here you are, how many times you pause and you think, you have a discussion prompt, and you're running out of ideas. You can plug in, give me certain suggested activities. Those activities that ChatGPT is giving you, they're very basic. It's a broad spectrum of activities, but even that can get your mind thinking to actually start working on something that perhaps prior to that you were not able to. So there are teachers, elementary school teachers, middle school teachers, saying that ChatGPT is now helping them with some of the lesson plans that would take them several days to develop. Now they can do it fairly easy. They're not using it verbatim, but what they're doing is they're using it as a starting point. So I think even for our students, saying, as you're doing this research, utilizing it as a starting point. The way we, way back in the day, the way we started using search engines. So search engines were not inspiring folks to plagiarize, have some done that, yes, but they were used as a starting point as we start doing a research venture, as we start doing our papers. But great questions and great points, absolutely.
Maja, I had one more, which is, I think it's just kind of a scaling up from what you said. I know we're kind of stuck on the ChatGPT right now, but I feel like this, it's in other areas too. I heard of artists whose work was fed into some system, and then the program spits out work in their likeness that they would make. But I think the way to think of it maybe is, what is the opportunity? If your normal stuff can be automated, what can you do that can't be? And I feel like the answer to that may be things that we can't even imagine right now. Kind of like the way you opened with, I couldn't have imagined being here on a webinar with you all 5 years ago or 6 years ago, but it will be interesting to see where it goes. But I think, like you said, if we keep it positive and think, what's the opportunity that we're not, we couldn't have before, that might be kind of the way to go.
Absolutely. It's all about, we're talking so much, and I love that comment you made, because we're talking so much about a work-life balance. And I think collectively as a society, we are overworked. So any technology that can help us free up some of the time and automating some of the things that we're doing right now, and then liberating that time to do some more productive things in life is helpful. 115 years ago, I was in the mortgage industry. And we would get customer complaints. And sometimes I would get literally 50 to 70 emails of customer complaints. I had to create an email, a separate email. We didn't have templates for every single customer, catering to exactly what they were looking for. So think about some of the things that in customer service can be automated. Now, keep in mind, all of us that were trying to change the flights or something, utilizing some of those online features, getting superbly aggravated. It's not perfect. You're still cannot neglect the human element. You don't want to have this feeling of talking to a machine, but having a human element while automating a lot of different things. Because what we did is going back to the 4.0. In 4.0, we learned how to do those automated things, and a lot of companies overused automation, right? 5.0 is now putting the human element. I cannot even begin to tell you how many times I just frustrated, walked away from the online feature and actually grabbed a phone, and made a phone call to a certain company. Yet again, because it wasn't perfect, it was very clear that I'm talking to a machine. So as we polish a lot of different things, we're gonna work on these type of things, like artificial intelligence in general. On Instagram, just the other day, I saw the fashion show that was actually focusing on the fashion for the elderly. So they've created this whole artificial intelligence fashion show that was absolutely amazing. The catch was it was not real. So actually people were able to benefit from seeing different clothes, different wardrobe, different models. It was completely artificial intelligence made. So yeah, there's so many. The concept is, what can I do with the time that I now have if I utilize technology appropriately? And a lot of times as we develop courses, always very simple question. It's not a complex question. Is this technology helping my students learn? it's just, you know, I like to say, you know, all the unicorns and butterflies in this course, are they really necessary for what our students are trying to do? How many of those videos are students watching? As they're doing the gaming, are they performing well on that game? Are they actually doing better with a course learning objective because I have that virtual game in the class? And so forth and so forth.
I just want to break in with just a quick time check. We're about 10 minutes to 11.
Any other comments? Any other questions? How many of you will be in Orlando? Can you actually post that in a chat pod? Is everyone coming to Orlando to a conference?
And we do have the reactions button at the bottom to raise your hand if you'd like to utilize that.
I would love some of you to send me some of your thoughts. I'm going to actually post my LinkedIn page. So please send me a message, connect with me via LinkedIn. This webinar is just a little teaser pertaining to some of the concepts we'll be discussing in Orlando. I would like to hear your thoughts and see some areas that you would like me to focus more on, some things that you're currently doing within your university in your classes. And here's my LinkedIn page. Please feel free to connect and send me a message. I would like to thank all of you for coming in this morning and partaking in this webinar. And again, thank you, Pat, and thank you to your team and IACBE. Looking forward to seeing everyone in Orlando, and it's going to be a terrific conference.
Maja, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning. We really appreciate it. And I think all of us are looking forward to hearing Dr. Zelehic give her presentation at ACAM in Florida. So
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thank you.